Welcome to the Elise Tzurkov podcast. Here, I help women in perimenopause and menopause thrive unapologetically from the inside out. Each week, we dive into candid conversation and expert insights designed to navigate the unique and challenging times of this stage of life so you can feel stronger, more confident, and at home in your body. Let's dive in and start thriving together. So, on this episode, I am going to kind of backtrack a little bit and introduce myself because I have yet to do that. So, this is the first time that you're listening. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It has been a passion of mine to help women and to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. So, I started. You know what? Let's even go back. I grew up as a dancer and a performer since age 3. I was on the stage dancing. I just loved it. I loved activity. I loved movement. And I fell in love with the weight room when I was 14 years old. I remember that transition from dancer to gym thinking, oh my God, I can do this so much better. Now, if you've ever seen me before, you might look at me and think, you were a dancer? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I definitely stood out. So I'm like 5'1" on a really good day. And right now sitting at 125 to 127 pounds. But when I was younger, I was definitely a lot thicker and heavier, thighs, boobs, but you name it, I had it. And so I definitely stood out in that long line that they made us stand in by height. I was typically in the middle because I was the smallest and the shortest and the thickest. But I was also one of the strongest dancers because I had a lot of muscle and I didn't like it. I wanted to be skinny. I tried to be skinny so hard. Most of my teen years were trying so hard to be skinny that I sucked at it. I only got bigger and bigger. And I mean, it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I actually said, fuck it. I'm so much better at being stronger. I'm going to double down on this. However, I do remember that when I fell in love with a weight room, I was like, this feels better for me. I think I can do stronger better than I can do skinny. And I was a strong dancer and I did tap, jazz, ballet, musical theater, and I repeatedly got the lead, which is exciting, except it made me stand out even more. And what teen girl really wanted to stand out? Not me. And so as I transitioned into the weight room and I started falling in love with weights, I started becoming, for lack of a better word, just obsessed with how the body moves and manipulating the body. It was a no brainer for me in university to study kinesiology and health sciences. I just wanted to double down on everything to do with the body. Physiology to this day still extremely excites me. I used to teach it a couple years ago at the college. Exercise physiology was a love of mine for many, many years. It made sense for me. It clicked. And so I worked in the fitness and nutrition space for most of my adult life. Right out of university, I ended up doing corporate fitness and wellness, and I stayed there for 14 years where I was responsible for really getting employees in shape at the office. So doing things like taking my ghetto blaster at the time. Yes, this was before really cool cell phones, but I would take my ghetto blaster and a CD and do stretch breaks for employees, like literally, hey, it's 2 o'clock, everybody get up and we're going to move. That was me. Do biometric screenings, doing lunch and learns, running the gyms, just getting employees healthy. And I loved it. I really did. And everything changed for me and in my life when my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I say this all the time, it was the catalyst for change in my life, both as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, and as a human, and especially as a business owner. So when Owen was diagnosed, he was only 2 at the time. This was back in 2015 now. And I knew about type 2 diabetes, but I really didn't know anything other than with type 1 that you got to give needles. So within 24 hours of his diagnosis, not even, I'd say within an hour of his diagnosis, Owen had his first insulin injection. And Albert and I were in what they call diabetes daycare for 2 days, learning about insulin, different types of insulin, and carb ratios, basal activity in the body. I went home the very first night of diagnosis and they gave us a book, which is kind of like the how to for dummies in type 1 diabetes line, but it was like a how to book. Like, okay, so your kid's been diagnosed with type 1, now what? And it would talked about what to do when they're sick and what to do, when they don't want to eat and all these things. I read that book cover to cover and I came back with post-it notes And the nurse said to me, no one has ever done that. And I'm like, I know, because I'm fucking crazy like that. Because when I am passionate, I am super passionate and I go all in. It's the only way I know how to do it. So I double down for the next, I'd say, year, especially 2 years on diabetes, everything diabetes, eat, sleep, breathe. To the point where I was hospitalized a couple times from burnout, from panic attacks, all the things. And so definitely went a little bit too overboard. But in doing so, I really understood blood sugar management. And I started to use this with clients that I was seeing on the side. So I was doing personal training. I was teaching a lot of fitness classes. I've taught every class you can ever think of, from boot camp, spin, yoga, step, double step. If you grew up in the 90s, then I probably taught you step at some point. But I did all that. And I was it just like literally opened my eyes. Like my lens of life got so big, and it was so heavy of a diagnosis. If you have a kid with high needs, and your whole world collapses, because it is life or death every second of the day. It is really life changing. And so I had to quiet a lot of the fluff. I wrote a blog. I did a blog, my high low life, and I did that for a couple of years just to kind of get it out there. But I mean, I let go of a lot of friends, relationships that didn't serve me anymore, and I was just, for lack of a better word, obsessed with keeping my son healthy and alive, and not necessarily protecting the world around him, but making him strong enough that he can endure the world around him. That was our MO. Albert and I had said, we are never going to let him feel sorry for himself. We are never going to baby him in this world, but we are going to protect him, because this world is tough and he needs more resilience than anybody else. And so that's what we committed to, and that's what we still do. So I started, like, again, my lens opening and seeing that there's so much more out there than just teaching classes, training clients, and that if I can double down on nutrition and blood sugar management, hormones, understanding how insulin works in the body and how glucose is being utilized in the body, I could really help people. Now, this was about the same time that COVID hit. So now COVID, it's November 2020. And I say to Albert, I think I can help people. I don't know how, but if I can just help people, I can make it so much easier. Women are just complicating this, and it doesn't have to be. And so I didn't know what I was doing. And I just decided I'm going to join a mentorship. I did my very first fitness mentorship with Jill Coleman, FBA. Shout out to her. And I had no idea what I was doing. I invested $2,000, which was a shit ton of money for me at the time. And Albert thought I was crazy, because he's Mr. Business. And he's like, why are you paying someone to teach you business? But it was the best thing. I learned how to service clients, how to coach, how to start running a business. And my business, really, honestly, for lack of a better word, exploded. I already had a reputation where people trusted me with fitness and nutrition. So when I doubled down in the nutrition space, and I started learning more about the metabolism, the female metabolism, macronutrition. I spent about a year and a half, 2 years strictly as a macro coach. And then eventually, I say, this market of perimenopause and menopause really found me, because I'm in it as well. And like I said, when I'm in it, I'm 100% in. I did this as well when I was pregnant with my kids. So for the years that I was pregnant, I was obsessed with helping pregnant women. I had diastasis recti when I was pregnant with my second. If you don't know what that is, that's a separation of the abdominals from the linea alba, the fascia that runs down the center of the abdominal wall. And that hurt my ego, because I'm like, what the fuck? I have diastasis recti and I am like a trainer, a fitness pro. So I doubled down, and for 7 years, I stayed in pre and postnatal fitness, helping women, making sure that they were strong enough to go through their pregnancy and recover from it the right way. So I stayed there again. And then that no longer served me, because I wasn't pregnant or just having a baby anymore. So because I'm in perimenopause myself, and because it's such a misrepresented, misunderstood, and overwhelming time of a woman's life, I decided to double down on it. In fact, I would say more people found me. And so I kind of had to organically change my business and change the model. And so we as a company really started really honing in on, how can we make our products better? How can we service more women? How can we help women, not just with their physiques, but to advocate for themselves, to their doctors, to their partners, to their family and friends? And this time in perimenopause especially brings an identity shift. So many of us are walking around thinking, who am I now? My kids are getting older. They don't need me the way they used to. My body is changing. I don't feel as sexy. I don't feel as sexual. And I am just here to debunk the fuck out of all that. Because if you think that you do not have it in you, I am telling you, girl, I don't care how old you are, you have a lot of hotness left in you. And I am here to prove it with you. So thank you so much for being here and following along. A lot of what we do today is a lot of mindset work in really discovering or rediscovering your 2.0 version so that you never need to do this work again. Getting off the diet train once and for all has brought me so much passion. And I have a team. I have the best fucking team. If you are a client and you've gone through the program, then you probably have fallen in love with your coach. I am also heavily involved in the program. I do regular calls. I do mindset calls. I talk to each and every client. When they need me, they can reach me. When I say we over deliver on our client experience, it is a core value of the company. And our mission statement at FFWE is to help women thrive unapologetically from the inside out. In fact, I wanted to name this podcast Unapologetically You. And I thought I was so fucking creative. And I had that name hidden in my heart for about a year and a half until I went ahead and looked. And there's like 30 other podcasts named Unapologetically You, which is why I dropped all my creativity and thought, I'm just going to call it the Elise Tzurkov podcast. And that's kind of where we are today. So today I am 45 years old as of this recording. It is November 7th, 2024. I've got 3 kids. I've got a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old. I've got my dog sitting in the background who's snoring. My amazing husband, Albert, who is my rock. And I've got you. So thank you so much for joining me today and learning a little bit more about me. You can learn more about me and FFW on Instagram and Facebook at functionallyfitlise.com or on my website, www.functionallyfitlise.com. Please say hello to me. Tell me what you think of the podcast. As a reminder, the information provided on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare professionals with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or health-related goals.